Sir Nicholas,
What?
what did the fish say when he swam into the wall?
Ouch.
Damn.
Oh, wow. Okay, you know what?
Getting a little PG on this one.
Yeah.
A little PG-13.
I like that one, actually. That one's a pretty good one. Not as cheesy as your knock-knock jokes.
And welcome back to TLDR. I'm your friendly neighborhood backcracker, Dr. Joe. With me, as always, is my hunk in crime. Together, we are the Woodward Bernstein of the DSG. And Nicholas, I got to tell you, we've never Woodward Bernstein more in our life.
No, we haven't. We've obviously last week, for those who missed it, make sure you go listen to the Benjamin Percy interview. If you're watching us right now, sure, watch us. But I would, if you have to make a choice, I would go listen to that interview, then come back and rewatch this, or maybe even go listen to this when we put it in audio form up later in the week. But on top of Benjamin Percy, where we talked about Ghost Rider with him, which is out this week, which we will talk about more in a little bit. We just talked to the other day, Cy Spurrier, who wrote Step by Bloody Step for Image Comics. That is out this week. Also talked to him about some of his upcoming work with Marvel as well, among other things. The Rush, which Joe has been reading and we'll talk about on the show at some point. I've had to wait on that. But, man, that was it was a fun conversation. But what was so important for that one, and it was like a kind of like a glass-shattering, eye-opening moment for me, with our interviews, like it enhances the process for us when it comes to reading any of these books, because we learn a little bit more about intent and all that stuff, and you get that in synopsis, sure. But with Step by Bloody Step, we liked this coming into the conversation with Cy, but then as we talked to him about it more, because this is such a unique book, because there's no dialogue in this. For me, it really enhanced, like, looking back at it and thinking about the little stuff that we talked about. And I think for any of these conversations, it's done that. But that was one where it was like, wow, this is why I love these interviews so much that we do.
Yeah, and I can't wait to go back and look at this one again. I looked at it several times leading into the interview because, as you said, there's no dialogue. So the story is told strictly through the art. And the art is absolutely gorgeous. It's Mateus.
It begins with a B. We're terrible. This is
Yeah,
no excuse on
Bagheera?
our part.
I can't remember. But anyways, like, the art is absolutely gorgeous. So this is a book that you're definitely going to want to read that comes out this week. I would definitely check out the interview with Cy Spurrier, because he is just, man, he's so smart. And the depth he goes into about the characters in this book and writing and his process in general is absolutely fascinating. This was a fun one for sure.
So the artist is Matthias Bergara, which I believe.
There we go. Nailed it.
Yep, nice job. And then the colorist is Mateus Lopez. So
yeah, real tongue twister there with the artist and the colors.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. That was right off the rip. It's like which. But anyways, but yeah, in the conversation about Nightcrawler and everything too, and Black Knight, again, talked about Marvel stuff that he's done and has coming up too. So some really cool stuff. Really enjoying the work that he's been doing at Marvel too. And I was bummed we didn't get to talk about Constantine, because I did want to talk about his run and what he liked about the character a lot. I did talk about that one on the show, not on as an individual episode, because I've already done I did Constantine like right at the beginning, but I did talk about that issue to issue. And I was really disappointed when his run ended, because I just felt like he was really in tune with the character and like all the shit that goes wrong with the character like around him. Yet somehow every time Constantine kind of comes out, like, he still kind of comes out smelling a little shitty, but he's fine. Like, he's all right. Like, we move on, we move forward, and it's like, this is my life, and this is why I don't get close to people, because they always get screwed in the end. So
we forgot to ask him his thoughts about Zdarsky popping into the X-Men writers' room.
I thought that thought did cross my mind, because he said how they were a close-knit group. And I was like, yeah. And then clearly we found out that you guys don't like outsiders coming in at all, because Percy had some vile things to say about Chip Zdarsky. But yeah, it was really fun. And we can promise you all this, that we are not done. Just a matter of, we'll keep your papers popped. If you don't follow us on Twitter already, make sure you do, because we may be announcing some other people that are joining us, in the near future. And make sure, if you're watching us now too, and you haven't already, subscribed to us on our audio channels, whether it's, GWW Radio, that's their SoundCloud, or Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, Stitcher. And you can also find us on YouTube as well when you search TLDR Comic Book Club. And make sure if you know a fellow comic book reader, you tell a friend because they're going to really enjoy it because we give you guys everything that you could want, including what's new. But I'd be jumping ahead if I go to what's new. We got to do catching up first for this week. What do you
Yes,
got?
we do. So I caught up on a couple books. I started Heathens by Cullen Bunn. Read the first issue.
Okay, nice.
Enjoyed it very much. So I plan on, I think issue 4 drops this week. So I'm gonna read 2 and 3 ahead of that. X-Men number 8 continues to be excellent. Orphan and the Five Beasts number 3. I read that because issue 4 comes out this week as well. The only issue I had with that book is like issue 3 came out in November. So what I'm starting to realize, because the same thing's happening with Radio Apocalypse, is like these books, these good indie books that you like, with there being several months in between, you forget about them.
Yeah,
you completely forget them. I don't blame anyone for going Radio Apocalypse. What the fuck? Oh, did I read that? I can't remember. Orphan and the Five Beasts. Like, these are really good books. They're off the beat books. But they're so long in between, it's like, what the hell happened? Do I have to go back and reread? And it makes it hard to want to really like sink your teeth into. But it's a really, really, really good book.
So we exist as a show, Joe, to let the people know, like, hey,
right.
it is worth going back to.
The fuck yeah.
Yeah.
So another number 1 I caught up on because number 2. So a lot of these books I read today is because they have issues coming out this week. So Rewrite Titans number 1. I caught up on that and I enjoyed that. I would sort of compare it to Jenny Zero, but without the debauchery.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
you've been hovering around this one. I've been waiting for you to tell me a little more about this and how you feel about it. Nice. Okay, good.
It's a toned down, Jenny Zero. Now we know with Jenny Zero, it's written by Brockton McKinney and David Dwanch, and they are, they're some wild dudes. They're great dudes.
They just got greenlit for their second volume over.
They sure did.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to talk with them again about that, and because I absolutely love Jenny Zero. So same thing. You've got kaijus, and you've got big mecha warrior Titan bots, and it was really good. I really enjoyed this. There's gonna be some good character depth there in that series. And then Knighted number 4. I finally caught up on that. That might be the best issue yet of that series.
Yeah, I actually I had that set aside. I was just double checking because I couldn't remember what the ending was, and then it was like, oh no, wait, that's right. Now I very much remember what the ending was of that episode. This is one of my favorite titles over at AWA right now. I know they say this is the 4th out of 5 issues, but who knows how this is going to end?
You got to think this is going to get a second arc.
Right? Well, I mean, unless he were to meet, an untimely end, which could happen. But yeah, I would like to see this character get a second arc.
But the whole premise with the suit, anyways, I mean, it's limitless where they could go with this.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh, that's a very good point. Yes, it could be absolutely. So this is definitely one. Even if you haven't, if you weren't up to date on all the, what was their big event thing, Joe? That Diodato, and who was I forget who the writer was. The big event, the first thing I think you talked about
Resistance.
on AWA. Resistance, thank you. So if you're not up to speed on all of the Resistance stuff, you can still pick this up. This is centered in that world.
But it doesn't touch on it at all, other than maybe a few bits in the first issue.
Yeah, they really like it's there are little things because like the villains kind of like have issues with all these people who now have powers and everything. So it's still a part of it, but like you're not getting hammered over the head with it. And like you said, in the first issue, they really like set the stage and let you know what's going on. So I think that's one thing that we've kind of seen, maybe more so maybe it's just because we're older and like we can comprehend things better. But I feel like as a kid, when in the comics that I did read, it was hard to like hop in at certain times, and that's like such a thing with superhero comics. But with the indies, like it's getting better, and Knighted is a prime example of that.
Yeah. This is a great one you can read without having known anything about the Resistance universe and read it and enjoy it. Which, I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love telepaths, but I am having such a hard time wrapping my mind around that title not being in the Resistance universe.
Yeah,
when it so clearly should be. But
yeah, absolutely, I agree with you on that one. And I also caught up on Knighted this week. I also read Shadow Man issue 6. Cullen Bunn, another thing he's writing right now. Again, he's on fire. And I like Shadow Man we talk about all his other stuff that's like this is Valiant is still indie, but Shadow Man is not Cullen's creation. This is still like it's a legacy character in his own right. I'll tell you what though, man,
it's a legacy character for Valiant for sure.
For Valiant, 100%. This has been a lot of fun. New characters that have been around in Shadow Man for a while are getting mixed in. I got to go back and read some more Shadow Man, I think, because it just seems like there's some really cool characters. I love all the. This is, I think you were the first one to say it's like he's kind of like got a Constantine vibe to it in terms of what he's dealing with, but very different, a different character in his own right. But it seems like shit's about to really explode in Shadow Man. But really enjoying that. The first volume of that, the first 4 issues are available to buy now. Animal Castle issue 3. This is from Ablaze, and I was telling you before the show, Joe. I knew nothing about Ablaze until I picked up Animal Castle, and that was recommended to me at by my local comic shop owner over at Time Capsule in Seekonk, and I picked it up. So I'm like, all right, I'll give it a look. Whatever, kind of fun. Like, yes, it's a somewhat of a play on Animal Farm, but better. And I would say it's still different because Animal Farm obviously is like a timeless story and whatnot. I've really enjoyed this. I did pick up another book from Ablaze recently too, Life Zero. Enjoyed the art in that big time. Story was solid, but I think I'll be talking about Animal Castle on this show at some point down the line. I'm gonna be looking for more Ablaze stuff to pick up too because the art in both of these is really good, and to me that says a lot about the company. If you're getting like good consistent art as much as there's like a range.
Right.
And the other one I had to catch up on was Power Rangers 16. This is the end of the Altarian War, and this is Ryan Parrott is sticking with this title as much as he's going to do other stuff. Really enjoyed this the Altarian War. I thought he did an outstanding job with it. If you are a Power Rangers fan, I recommend just in general reading both Power Rangers and Mighty Morphin. But I think you have to go and read the Altarian War when the 2 trades are going to be available for you, both Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers. So a lot of fun with that. Maybe hearing more from him in some other ways down the line, but that's another story for another day. It is time for us to get to what's new, Joe, and we start with Marvel. Why don't you take us through it?
So this week, dropping from Marvel, we have Amazing Spider-Man number 90. We have Dark Ages number 5. X Deaths of Wolverine number 3. Black Widow 14. Silk number 2. Iron Man 17. Silver Surfer Rebirth number 2. Carnage Forever number 1. Shang-Chi number 9. Devil's Reign Villains for Hire number 2. And Elektra Black, White, and Blood number 2. But the big book, the big book that we talked with the author with last week about this week is Ghost Rider number 1.
Holy shit. Yeah. So when we talked to Ben about it, he said how we knew kind of coming into our conversation that it was going to have horror influence and everything. And with Ghost Rider, that makes a ton of sense. But we hear about the intentions and everything, and that's important. As I'm reading this, dude, it's like the art absolutely hits. It still has like a superhero vibe, but at the same time, it's gritty, gets kind of gross at moments too when you're looking at some of these monsters that are popping up. But what I love the most is with this Ghost Rider story, Johnny Blaze has no idea what the hell's going on. And then you get this one character that gets thrown into the mix where Johnny is, and you're thinking like, oh, this dude's going to go and like, you have a set of expectations for what this character is going to be. And like, he's kind of in that line, but he's also different too. Like you're expecting him to go in one direction. It's like, it's kind of going in the other. So I really like that. And we get to meet a new character, like an ex-SHIELD agent, which I believe Ben told us about a little bit.
Yeah, a new character he created, an FBI agent. And
I like her a lot.
Yeah, she's fucking awesome. Yeah. And a lot of horror vibes in this. I mean, the art was at an 11 all the way through. And the horror sequences that we got, which I loved, especially with Johnny, I love good, flawed characters. Talked about that time and time again. And, Percy really, really dives in to Johnny Blaze and, all the fucked up shit he's dealing with and how it's affecting the people around him. And then, as the issue goes on, you're just like, oh, fuck. Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. I want it all. Like, I never thought in a million years, Nicholas, that I would ever read a Ghost Rider. comic. It's just never been. As I told Ben on the show, I'm a pussy. It was a kid. I was afraid to read Ghost Rider. He looked scary. I didn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, and so I just never got any sort of attachment to the character. You knew of him, fine. Johnny, Nick Cage played him.
Yeah.
Great. Never watched the movies.
You never watched either one of them?
Neither.
It's like the second one, I was like, I was ready for it. The first one I was ready for it. The second one, I was like, I don't know, like this looks really bad, and it was really bad.
But when you take a character like that and you can write them in such a way that is engaging and engrossing, and you're telling a tremendous story around it, he sold it to me 100%. I mean, I was going to read it anyways. Ben Percy, okay, I'll give it a shot, but after listening to the interview, or after doing the interview with them, I should say, and then reading the book, because we didn't get a chance to read it beforehand, which was wild. Usually we have these books to read beforehand.
That's true.
To our interview. So it really enhanced my enjoyment of reading that first issue.
Yeah, and that's a good point. With Marvel, we do kind of run into that issue where we don't get to look at them all ahead of time, or at least one at the first issue ahead of time. But with Ghost Rider, I mean, like I think what we're seeing with Ben, like I really liked his writing beforehand, but what we're seeing with him with Wolverine and with Ghost Rider, where it's like, I know it's just the first issue of Ghost Rider, but that right now is my favorite for comic of the week. I know this is a Saga week. We have not gotten a look at Saga, and that's always the favorite coming in any week. So it's going to be tough to knock off. But Ghost Rider, I mean, this like with both Ghost Rider and with Wolverine, the one thing that we get a sense of in both, to connect the two with Ben, is like it's dark and it's gritty, and it's not just like dark for being the sake of dark. Like these characters need to have that around them. You cannot treat them like your normal superheroes. Like this isn't Black Widow, this isn't Iron Man, like whose titles we have out this week. Like these two guys are very different from everybody else, and you need someone who can handle that stuff. And then when you look at his indie stuff too, we talked about his AWA work a while back. It's the same kind of stuff, and like that's not saying he can't do other things, but this is where he's like, he's got it going on. And Wolverine and Ghost Rider too. Like Ghost Rider's got more horror vibes. Wolverine doesn't have that. And so there's a range within that. And I love what he's doing. I couldn't be more excited about this title.
Yeah. I think I have to agree with you. I mean, granted, we didn't get the normal books we get on a weekly basis. So some of these we didn't get a chance to read yet. But I mean, as number ones go, I mean, that's just off the top of my head, the number ones I could think of, from this year are Ghost Rider number one, Hulk number one. Like those two absolutely blew my doors off.
Yeah, and you've been alluding to this for a while now. Like when we first started the show, DC to me was of the big two was in a better spot. I thought they were writing better stories. I thought the art was better. Like they were willing to push the envelope a little bit more. And don't get me wrong, there are still DC titles that we like. We have a few that we're going to rattle off in a second that we're both reading that came out this week. But like Marvel has taken things and taken control again, in my opinion, because we look at the books that we have out this week, and there's Dark Ages, which we both love, and it has been awesome. X Deaths of Wolverine, just Wolverine, anything Ben Percy's doing with Wolverine has been great. Ghost Rider was awesome. I didn't check out Ferg's Carnage Forever, but I think he liked that as well. You're enjoying Shang-Chi. This Black, White, and Blood stuff that's been going on. We're getting Moon Knight of that too. And like
Black Widow's coming off an Eisner.
Black Widow's kicking ass. Yeah. And I didn't read that this week, but the last issue I did read, awesome. So all this stuff, like and this is just this week alone. They've shifted things from a storytelling, and then, I mean, Daredevil too, and Devil's Reign and everything. So there's just, and the X-Men. I know you've had frustrations, but a lot of people have enjoyed X-Men, and they're continuing to enjoy it as we're kind of coming back into the mix. So yeah, it's just Marvel has taken back control, and I think that's like I don't like seeing DC have the second seed. They could both. It could be 1 and 2, and they could both still be good. But there have been some issues with DC, and let's move into them. I know you have one that you're going to weigh in on heavily, and we'll get to that. But you have The Human Target issue 5, Detective Comics 1054, Task Force Z issue 5, which I'm way behind. I don't know if I'm going to try and catch up on this because like the first 2 issues were whatever. Batman versus Big B issue 6, Aquaman issue 1. I might give a look, not sure. DC versus Vampires issue 5, outstanding. Deathstroke Inc. issue 6, really good. Really excited for what's coming with that title moving forward. We'll talk about that more in a second with your book. And then Aquaman, Green Arrow, Deep Target issue 5. I think this is 6 or 7 issues. I think in the end, like it had a really hot start. and it's a solid book. I think this is a good book for kids to read. It's not kidsy, but I just feel like it's not really dealing with a whole lot, and the art is good. So it's not one by any means that's a must read for any of you out there. But if you have like your nephew's what, 11?
11, yep.
Yeah, I think he'd be in a really good spot to read this. But what's the DC book you really wanted to dig into?
Well, so for those watching, it's my background right now. Robin number 11. I talked about this on the show around Thanksgiving, and this book has just been great. Complete and total surprise for me. And where the story's been going, it's just been getting better and better. And the way that this issue didn't have a ton of action in it. The story was, I mean, in the pantheon of issues, it was just sort of like middle of the road kind of thing.
Okay.
But, but, but the way it ended, Nicholas. So there was something that there was a character that we lost in the Batman universe some time ago.
Okay.
And the way that this one ends had me picking up my jaw off the floor, saying, "Oh my god, oh my god,
Yeah.
are you? Don't you fucking tease me! Don't you fucking do it! This better be setting up what I think it's setting up." So, big implications at the end of Robin number 11 here. Blew my doors off. Just I can't wait to see where this goes. So we've got Josh Williamson writing this. You've got him writing Batman. Like I don't know.
Deathstroke Inc. too.
Deathstroke Inc. So let's start to connect the threads here, and
Yep.
maybe someone we love very dearly is making a comeback.
It seems like there's going to be a lot going on with these three titles, and I don't know where I saw it, but I think there's going to be a thing going on with all of them, and shit's about to get pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Hopefully, now with that, I'm totally here for that. I think that'll be fun, but don't make this like an entire arc for all three titles, because that's 18 books, and that's two titles that I'm personally not reading right now.
Yeah.
So if we did it 2 issues a piece, or 3 issues a piece, that's cool. Like I can get behind that. But I am excited, like to see like if something's going on with all three of them, and I'm just excited to hear more about this from you. You already told me what happened, so like I'll stay quiet
with your blessing.
Yes, of course. Yeah, because I'm not reading the title. Like, well, I will at some point, because you've obviously done that on the show. But as we go into Image, we see like why it's sometimes hard to catch up. Take us through those, Joseph.
All right. So as Nick mentioned earlier, Saga 56 drops this week. I can't wait to get my hands on that. Gunslinger Spawn number 5. Philadelphia 19. Did you read that one, Nicholas?
Yes. Holy shit. Yeah. It was like, yeah. So we'll put it this way. There's a new player in the game, and there's like midway through, like Rodney, like basically tells you who it is if you know certain things about history and whatever, but until it was confirmed, it was still like it's got to be this person, right? Like you were thinking that the whole way through, right? You knew
100%, 100%. My only concern was that the title of this issue was "The End" or "The Last Battle" or something to that effect. So I start thinking, is this the last arc of Philadelphia? Did I miss a news announcement here? Is he wrapping this up?
That would have been wild if we missed it.
But Philadelphia 19, Two Moons number 10. I've enjoying the hell out of that series.
Nice.
Let's see, where do we go next?
I don't make me wait anymore. We have 4 Image books that we really want to dive into. I need you to tell me what's going on with Department of Truth 16.
Okay, so I teased this with you earlier. Department of Truth 16 came out. I think it's been on break for a little bit. I'm starting to lose interest. I almost put this issue down. Part of it was the art, so lately, Martin Simmons is the regular artist on this book, and his art's not everyone's cup of tea, but it fits very well with what this book is. But lately, over the past several issues, they've had different artists come in and do, various issues. And I did not like the art in this issue. And I just didn't like the issue. And it's going to happen from time to time, like not every book is going to be a home run, but Department of Truth has run. It's not running into, it has run into a pacing problem. It is stalled. Like the first 2 arcs were fucking humming. And now I just feel like we're just spinning in fucking circles. It's just meta dialogue. It's just mix it with the art. Like literally, I got halfway through it. I said, I don't want to finish this. I did, so that I could bitch about it on the show.
Right.
But like, I'm really bummed out because like this is a book that I've really loved, and I feel like there's a lack of direction.
It's too
It's
bad.
almost as if the writer is like,
Well, you said
where
the
am I
writer.
going with this?
It's your guy. It's Tynan, and I mean, like at some point, like it's ever since look. I understand getting an award and that kind of impacting you and what you do and everything like that, and that can be tough. And maybe that's what it is. And if that's what it is, then like obviously, that sucks that you're dealing with that. But I can't help but look at the Substack stuff and see how he made that move and how he's like trying to take what he's doing, like how his success, and like capitalize on it in a way that seemed like it could be detrimental. And where we're seeing it and pop up in other things, it's like, well, it feels like it kind of has been. Just based off what you're telling me, because you're the one that's reading all of Tynan's stuff.
I just feel like he's going sideways with Department of Truth right now. Like, the everything was going like the first 12 issues were just boom, 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 and then just the last several issues, I just feel like, where are we going? And let's get there. And this issue was this issue was just, it just felt unnecessary. And I hate to say it because I love this title. I love the writer. It's got nothing to do with the writing. It's just the writer is not moving the story forward.
It has everything to do with the writing.
Well,
it's the plotting. It's not the dialogue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. It's just.
I can tell it's hurting you to even just say the negative things about it but it happens sometimes.
It's true. I got to be honest, right?
Yeah,
I can't just sit here and fluff something that doesn't deserve to be fluffed.
Right. We never want to fluff where you're not.
I don't fluff for the sake of fluffing, Nick.
That's good. I think that's very healthy. Anyways, I don't know how to pivot off of that into the other stuff. Actually, no, Bolero is a good way to pivot off into that, I would say, because there's that book gets very risque. The first issue certainly did.
Did you read the second one?
I have not. I absolutely intend to, but how'd you like it?
I love it. I love the first issue, and so the premise of Bolero is that you've got this woman and she's essentially having a midlife crisis, but in her 20s, right? And she's just fucking everything up. She can't get out of her own way, and it's a sort of sci-fi fantasy tale, right? So where at the end of issue 1, she enters this gate. She goes into this sort of astral realm, and she's I can't remember how many doors. It's like 80 something doors. She's given this key and said you can use this up to 80 something times. You go through a door and it's going to transport you into a different life. Your life just in either a different time period, whatever. And she opens, she uses the door, she goes in, and she's like herself, like mentally, but she could be in her own body, but in a different time era, or she could be in the body of someone else, and she could stay there for as long as she wants, or she can bolt. But when she bolts, that's one off the list. So it's a really cool premise. And so what after reading issue 1, you'd expect issue 2 to be a series, see her in a series of different lives, and it was fascinating. And it's a real thinker. It's still risque. Gets a little sexual, but it's fascinating as hell, and I absolutely love it.
So for those who haven't picked up the first issue yet, because I imagine it's going to be available in some places still, or maybe available on Comixology, it definitely takes a little while to get there in the first issue, but they're trying to set you up with the character and understand like everything that's gone on, and then once you get to the end of the issue, it's like, oh, okay, like now we're getting going. Now we understand what the deal is, and I agree. The first issue was awesome,
and I think it was a double length issue too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
and
that's
right.
A lot. Yeah,
and but that's
go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, and that's in the first half of that really is it's slow, but it's character building, and so but I think it's necessary and it's important because it really hammers home, the philosophical point of what this character goes through each time she enters a new door. And the lessons she's learning and the self-discovery that goes on, you kind of need to see where that character sort of how they sort of hit rock bottom, and then how it impacts everything else going forward.
Yeah, it's I'm curious, like as a little like aside here, because we're talking about second issue here. I've said for a while that to me, the first issue, like I have a different set of expectations than I do with the second issue. That's why like we talk about Hulk, where that was really awesome. King of Spies like knocked my socks off. Ghost Rider was outstanding. These are all like I haven't had as many like first issues where I'm like, oh my holy, this is as good as any issues that I would expect in the entire series. Like I expect the first one, you got to set the table. It's going to be tough sometimes, and I know, especially with legacy characters, it can be kind of tough. But with for me, the second issue has to blow me away. That's where it's like, okay, like the ending, I need something that's really going to hook me and reel me in, and all that stuff. I've brought it up with you a few times. Where do you stand on that?
And well, I mean, like, yeah, I usually will give a book 3 issues before I'm like, okay, you either pulled me in or you're not. I mean,
Yeah,
perfect
that's
case
right. That's the three issue rule.
point,
Yep.
right? Was that horror book there? I was like, what the fuck am I reading this for?
Vinyl.
Vinyl, and then I get the third issue. It's like I'm in, and then I'm like, but what am I doing here? Like, sometimes it backfires. Well, not backfires, but it just works in weird ways. But like, I'll usually always give a book 3 issues. Now, that's not always the case. Sometimes, like second issue, this book stinks.
Mm.
It is for someone else, and it is not me. But like this is a very fascinating book. This is sort of like on that same plane for me as the Many Deaths of Layla Starr. Like
Mm.
it's a thinker.
Mm.
It's a different type of comic where we read Ghost Rider because the art and the story and the characters are badass, or
Mm.
we're reading Batman books because we love Batman. Like this one I'm reading because I think that is a really good human case study, and
Mm.
the art is great, and the writing is great, and it all kind of comes together. It's very interesting.
So then, kind of going back to the way I view it, you can having the first issue in general be like a table setter. It doesn't like obviously you
Yeah,
have to have elements you like, but a table setter, you're fine with that.
I'm fine with that because as I've said before, like I just want a good story and I want good characters.
Mm.
I mean,
And
if
consistent art.
inconsistent art, right? If the first issue is just a slog and it doesn't pull me in, then it failed and it didn't do its job. But if I'm
Mm.
reading, I go, okay, there's something here. I think I can work with this, and then the second issue, if it's similar, I'm like, okay, I'll give you one more, and if it really doesn't get beyond that by the third issue, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times, if
Yeah.
that first issue was good but doesn't blow me away, but the second issue does,
Mm-hmm.
then boom, you
Yeah,
know.
I think the second one, the first one's really important. I think in terms of the art, but the second one for me is the story. But anyways, we move over actually to a couple of first issues. Well, one's a one shot, one's a first issue for a mini series. Let's start with Step by Bloody Step, just because we talked to the writer about it this week. That audio is going to be available again for those of you who are just joining us on the live stream. The audio is going to be available on Wednesday. Make sure you subscribe to the show so you get it delivered right to wherever you listen to us. But this was like we knew going in that didn't have any dialogue in it, but it was like, wait a minute, what is going on? And I was when Sai mentioned to us how like in some ways it can be an exhausting experience for readers. I was glad he said that because as much as I don't think I ever felt exhausted, I did feel like throughout reading, by the end of it, I was like, man, that was a lot because I'm going back and checking stuff like, did I miss this? What's going on here? And like the way he put it to like you have to investigate every panel. It's just
Yeah.
he did a great job of like talking about his book.
Yeah. And I felt the opposite. I didn't feel exhausted because I was just so drawn into the art. I mean, the art is gorgeous.
Mm.
And I mean, but you do really have to inspect everything because with there being no dialogue, the story is being told to you visually. And so you've got to, there's little subtle things you can miss. There's little nuances in there.
Oh yeah.
But I think what they do is a really good job of is giving you these nice big sweeping panels, and then in there like tiny little ones that like those are your real detail boxes, panels, and you could follow it along. And I, quote unquote finger quotes here, for those listening, read it a few times before we interviewed him, just because I wanted to just take it all in again.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like I felt like I needed to because I missed something. It was just, it was an experience that,
Yeah.
the only thing that came close to it was like maybe the first two issues of A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance,
Yeah.
right? Where there
I
was there wasn't a lot of dialogue there either. Again,
yeah.
it's mostly a visual thing.
Yeah.
But check it out. I can't recommend it enough because it is something else. It is an
Yeah.
experience like you'll never have with comic books.
It's a unique experience. We have talked about it with righteous thirst for vengeance, and it's fun. But that is more like it's on like acid or whatever. Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's not trippy, but it's just like moving at like a nonstop pace,
yeah.
and I really enjoyed that. But this is different. This is a unique experience, and I think making it. I know he told us there could be more beyond there could always be a sequel or something like that, but making this first thing 4 issues, I think makes it easier for people to get invested. Just because it's like now, okay, like now I'm not trying to go and take too much in. It's not going to be like a monthly thing. This is an experience, like you said, and it's a fun one to get involved with. Speaking of experiences, too, Supermassive issue 1. This was as advertised. I reviewed Step by Bloody Step and Ghost Rider this week for Geeks Worldwide. You reviewed Supermassive issue 1. Of course, this has to do with Radiant Black, Rogue Sun. What's the Inferno Red Girl? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you reviewed it for Geeks Worldwide.
Yep.
Yeah, Radiant Red. Yep. But those are the 3 characters at the center of it, the first 3. I know you liked it, but why don't you take the lead?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we talked with Kyle Higgins, he was talking about all these great plans he had, but we had no idea what was really in store, for Radiant Black and for that world that he created. Because we talked about at the time, like there's a lot of possibilities that you could do, and we see what those possibilities are in this book. Supermassive #1 is a 60-page one shot, and it's revolving around 3 characters in the Radiant Black universe, one of which being Radiant Black, and then 2 new characters that were being introduced to Rogue Sun and
Inferno Girl Red.
Inferno Girl Red, thank you. And the story is, at first I kind of got the sense, are we just gonna get 3 separate stories in sort of one volume that'll just sort of be a giant solicit for what's to come? But that couldn't be further from the truth. This is a legit 60-page story with these 3 characters involved. It's setting the stage, giving you just enough background on the new characters so that when their own titles launch later this month and later this year, it's going to give you that good primer, that good background. And man, I got to tell you, they're doing some really good shit. They got some really good shit planned. And so the story was great. A lot of action. The art was fantastic. There was some humor, it had that Radiant Black humor especially from Marshall, that sarcasticness that we're used to. So if you're a Radiant Black fan, you got to read this. It's a must.
So Inferno Girl Red is not going to be, Inferno Girl Red is not going to be out for a while, like the first issue of that. It's later in the year, and it says as much at the end of this issue. Rogue Sun, though, the first issue of that comes out March 2nd. If that's not on your pull list already, I'm sure there's your local comic shops are ordering plenty of that that comic. I would add it to your pull list now because
100%.
Joe and I may or may not have had access to some of the first couple or so issues, and it is awesome. The art is awesome. We'll talk about it more next week. Actually, no, we won't because I've got my vacation coming up. So we'll get to that a little bit later on.
But you'll hear a little bit more about it next week.
Yes, that is very true. But we'll get to that a little bit later in the episode. You know what? Whatever. You know what, Joe? It's in the can. We can tell people. Ryan Parrott's joining us next week. Well, we may already have it in the can. So make sure you listen in for that too. That was a very, very fun interview where we talked about Rogue Sun, some Power Ranger stuff as well too. So and then who knows if we have more planned for later on, but if we're telling you that it's happening, that means we've already done the interview. So make sure you subscribe to the show once again. All right, let's roll through these other ones, Joe, because there's none that we really want to dig into too much more. Boom, we got Berserker issue 7, which I got to read issue 6, but I am going to finish this off for the show. House of Slaughter issue 5, which you have been reading. Power Rangers Universe issue 3. All new Firefly issue 1, and then we got the Killer of Cullen. I'm sorry, The Killer, Cullen, Affairs of the State, issue 1, which we do want to. I know you want to take a look at. House of Slaughter, issue 5. How was issue 4, by the way? You were like dangerously close on backing out on this story, right?
I mean, I'm going to read it. I'm just buying time until something is killed and children returns, to be honest with you.
Gotcha. Why don't you take us through Dark Horse and Aftershock and IDW?
So from Dark Horse, we have Black Hammer Reborn, number 9. Orphan and the Five Beasts, number 4. I think this was the end. It didn't really say. I don't know. I'm a little confused. But a good issue nonetheless. Joy Operations, number 4. And then from Aftershock, you've been reading Cross the Bear, number 4. Issue number 4 comes out this week. And Heathens, issue number 4 drops this week.
Yep.
And then from IDW, right, we've got Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures number 13, and Usagi Yojimbo, Lone Goat and Kid number 2.
Now, is this old stuff that's just okay? Gotcha.
Colorized,
so, colorized. So if you haven't read this, you talking Jimbo stuff in the past. This is stuff you can absolutely get involved in. The last few that we have, AWA out issue 5. So we didn't get the advanced copy on this. I will be catching up with you guys on that because this is one I've been kind of itching for to come to the end. Telepath, the final issue of that as well. It's issue 6. From Dynamite, Red Sonja, issue 6, which Joe has been reading. Valiant, we have Harbinger, issue 5. And then from Vault, Radio Apocalypse, finally back, issue 2. The Rush, of course, by Cy Spurrier, issue 4. And then we have We Ride Titans, issue 2. So that's going to wrap up the show for this week. For those who are new to the show, whenever we do What's New, only that means we have an interview. Again, we told you Cy Spurrier this week. Normally, we would do that again for next week because Ryan Parrott is talking Rogue Sun with us and Power Rangers for that matter as well. However, I am going to be going away, so there will be no What's New this week. There will only be the interview that we'll be doing. We'll catch up on everything that we have in the following week. Whether or not we're doing a What's New that week or a mainline episode, well, you guys are going to have to subscribe to the show to find out, or tune in when we do our next stream, which will be guaranteed to be. So what is that? March 1st. So that's going to be March 8th. If my math is correctly, that is the next Tuesday. So until then, Joe, you can listen to Change My Mind. We just did a Peacemaker exit survey. I've heard it both ways. You guys are doing season 4, episode 3.
You got that right, baby.
Oh, look at that. So until then, though, stay sexy.
You know it.